Have you ever felt that sinking realization when the person you once admired starts to pull away, even though you're trying so hard to keep the connection alive? Have you ever wondered why your texts, your calls, and all your little gestures seem to be met with silence instead of the warmth you once enjoyed? It's like you're stuck in a cycle, reaching out more and more, yet feeling the distance grow with each passing day. And it's frustrating, isn't it? Let's face it, when someone starts to withdraw, the instinct is to try even harder, to fix things immediately. But here's the truth. Chasing her only deepens that gap. It's a common mistake, one that leaves many of us feeling lost and helpless. You may be pouring your heart out, hoping that one extra message might turn things around. But what if I told you that the secret isn't in chasing at all? What if the real power lies in stepping back and embracing a calm sense of self-assurance, one that comes from deep within? I remember a time when a friend of mine, let's call him Michael, was in a similar situation. At first, everything seemed perfect between him and his partner. There were shared laughs, meaningful conversations, and a spark that lit up his world. But slowly, he noticed a change. Her messages became fewer, and the once effortless connection started to feel forced. Instead of taking a moment to reflect, Michael started to reach out more frequently, trying to fill the silence with words, hoping that more attention would bridge the gap. Unfortunately, the harder he tried, the more he found himself drifting further away. It was a painful lesson in understanding that sometimes doing less is actually the way to do more. Before we move on, I'd really appreciate it if you liked this video. It truly helps in spreading these timeless insights about building inner strength and self-respect. And if you're new here, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a moment of these valuable lessons on becoming your best self. Now think about this for a moment. Imagine that instead of chasing, you step back and allow things to settle naturally. What if you focused on nurturing your own strengths, building confidence from within, and trusting that your worth isn't determined by someone else's attention? That's the essence of the wisdom we're about to explore. A blend of everyday experience and ancient insights that remind us that true attraction isn't about clinging or chasing, but about holding your ground and cultivating a calm, unshakable sense of self. This approach isn't just theoretical, it's practical and deeply rooted in age-old principles that have guided great minds for centuries. The idea is simple. When you let go of the frantic need to win someone back, you open up space to become the best version of yourself. You learn to see that every moment spent in panic is a moment stolen from your own growth. And as you start investing in your own journey, growing, learning, and evolving, you naturally become more magnetic. People are drawn to confidence, to calm strength, to someone who isn't desperate for validation. There's a power in embracing silence and allowing the space to speak for itself. When you hold your ground, when you show that your happiness comes from within, something remarkable happens. Your actions start to resonate on a deeper level. Instead of desperately trying to fill the void, you create an aura of mystery and strength that makes others take notice. It's about transforming that anxious energy into a quiet confidence that says, "I know my worth and I'm not afraid to live it." By understanding this, you can shift your focus from chasing someone who may not value you in the same way to investing in the most important relationship of all, the one you have with yourself. Every moment you take to nurture your inner strength is a step toward a life where you command respect without even trying. And that, my friend, is a lesson that goes far beyond relationships. It's about self-mastery, personal growth, and the kind of quiet power that makes life truly fulfilling. So, as we begin this journey, keep this in mind. Real change starts from within. When you learn to embrace your own worth and let go of the need for constant approval, you set the stage for genuine attraction, both from others and for yourself. Now let's break down the harsh truth about attraction. and why most men get this all wrong. Have you ever noticed that when you try too hard, you actually end up looking desperate? When you constantly reach out, the excitement fades, replaced by an unsettling sense that something isn't right. It turns out that chasing her doesn't bring her closer, it pushes her further away. This isn't just an impression, it's a well-known truth in the art of attraction. Think about that one guy who never texts first, yet somehow everyone seems drawn to him. It's not that he's playing games, rather he exudes a calm confidence that says, "I know my worth." When you chase after someone, you unintentionally communicate that your happiness depends on their response. Instead of being seen as strong and self-assured, you come off as needy, and that neediness is a major turn-off. Imagine a scenario. You send one message after another, hoping that each ping will spark a reaction. With every message, you're not only reducing the mystery that once made you attractive, but you're also conveying a sense of urgency and insecurity. Psychology tells us that people are naturally attracted to those who radiate self-reliance and inner strength. When you're calm and composed, it creates an air of intrigue and allure. Marcus Aurelius once taught that true strength lies in self-control and measured responses. In his view, it wasn't the loudest voice that commanded respect. It was the quiet confidence that spoke volumes. When you hold your ground instead of scrambling for validation, you send a powerful message. Your value is inherent and doesn't depend on someone else's attention. This isn't about playing hard to get. It's about embracing your own worth. Let me share an example to illustrate this point. There was a guy named David who always maintained his composure no matter what. Instead of over-texting or constantly checking in, David focused on his own interests and passions. He continued to live his life fully, which in turn made his presence all the more compelling. His calmness and independence created a natural tension, a space that made his absence noticeable and his presence valued. His partner, noticing the shift, began to wonder about the change. That quiet confidence made her realize that she was missing something essential. When you chase relentlessly, you're essentially saying, "I need you to feel complete." But when you step back and allow some distance, you give her the chance to appreciate your presence without feeling smothered. It's a subtle yet profound shift in the dynamics of attraction. By holding your ground, you're not just showing that you're secure, you're also giving her the space to reflect on what you bring to the table. There's an interesting psychological phenomenon at play here. When you are constantly available, the value of your attention diminishes. On the other hand, a little mystery goes a long way. Think of it as savoring a good meal. If you rush through it, you barely enjoy the flavors. But if you take your time, every bite becomes more meaningful. In relationships, that taking your time sends a signal of self-respect and independence. It tells her that while you care, your world does not revolve solely around her presence. It might seem counterintuitive at first. You might be wondering, how can doing less actually get me more? The answer lies in the fact that real attraction is not forced, it's earned. True attraction happens when both individuals contribute their own strengths, creating a balanced and respectful connection. When you stop trying to fill the silence with endless messages, you allow your inner strength to shine through. This transformation isn't about ignoring her, it's about affirming that your self-worth comes from within, not from external validation. Research has shown that self-assured individuals tend to draw others toward them naturally. When you project confidence, you invite curiosity and admiration. It's that unspoken understanding that you are complete on your own that makes you so appealing. Instead of chasing her every move, you become the kind of person who leaves a lasting impression, someone who is intriguing simply because they are comfortable with themselves. Now, let's take a moment to reflect on the impact of constant chasing. Each time you feel compelled to send that extra text or make one more call, you're inadvertently erasing the mystery that once captivated her. Instead of being seen as a confident, self-reliant individual, You risk becoming someone whose value is measured by how much effort they put into getting attention, and that is a message no one should ever have to send. Consider the simple truth that when you allow space to exist, you create an environment where genuine attraction can flourish. This isn't about playing games, it's about recognizing that true connection stems from a balanced give and take. When you stand firm in your own identity, you encourage her to do the same. It becomes a dynamic where both of you are engaged on equal terms, rather than one person constantly trying to bridge an ever-widening gap. I know this truth might be hard to accept. It requires a shift in mindset from one of desperation to one of quiet assurance. But once you embrace this perspective, you'll begin to see that the key to lasting attraction isn't found in chasing. It's found in holding your ground and letting your natural charm do the talking. The harsh reality is that if you're always on the chase, you risk becoming someone who's always in pursuit, never at ease. And that lack of ease is palpable. Women are drawn to men who are comfortable in their own skin, who exude a sense of calm that makes them irresistible. When you master this, you transform not just your relationships, but also your own life. But the problem isn't just chasing, it's also the deadly mistakes most guys make when she pulls away. Let's talk about those next. Most men, when they feel a woman pulling away, panic. And when you panic, you tend to make 3 critical mistakes that only push her further away. Let's break them down together. Imagine this. You send one message, then another, and before you know it, your phone is filled with texts. You're hoping that every ping will spark a reaction, but instead you're over-texting. This constant barrage of messages might feel like you're keeping the connection alive, but in reality, it smothers the space between you. When you over-text, you're not allowing any room for her to miss you. Each message you send reveals a little more about your need for her attention. It's as if you're saying, "I can't stand the silence," and in doing so, you inadvertently diminish the mystery that once made you so intriguing. Think about a lively conversation at a dinner party. If one person keeps monopolizing the conversation without letting others speak, the charm and spontaneity of the dialogue quickly fade away. Over-texting works in much the same way. It overwhelms her and reduces the natural ebb and flow of interaction. Instead of building anticipation, you risk making your presence feel constant and, frankly, expected. True attraction often lies in the delicate balance of giving space while remaining memorable. Now let's consider the second mistake, over-apologizing. When things feel off, your instinct might be to say sorry for every little misstep, even when nothing major has happened. While a sincere apology can mend a small misunderstanding, constant apologies can signal deep insecurity. It's like trying to fix a tiny crack in a mirror by tapping it repeatedly. Eventually, the mirror will only reflect your uncertainty. When you over-apologize, you're essentially saying that you believe you're always at fault. This mindset undermines your self-respect and makes you appear less confident. Imagine if every time someone disagreed with you, you immediately said, "I'm so sorry." Over time, your apologies lose their meaning, and you end up projecting an image of someone who's desperate for approval. Self-respect is key to genuine attraction, and when you constantly apologize, you are inadvertently suggesting that you lack it. Instead of reinforcing your value, over-apologizing makes it seem like you're willing to take on blame for things that aren't your responsibility. This not only diminishes your own sense of worth, but can also erode her perception of you as a strong, independent individual. Then there's the third mistake, trying to fix things too fast. When you sense that she's pulling away, your knee-jerk reaction might be to immediately patch up the situation, to smooth over every perceived flaw as quickly as possible. The idea is to fix things before they get worse, but this haste can backfire. When you rush to mend a situation, you don't give her or yourself the time to truly understand what went wrong. Instead of addressing the underlying issues, You're just putting a temporary bandage on a deeper wound. Picture something fragile, a piece of fine china, perhaps. If you try to glue it back together in a hurry without understanding the delicate structure of its cracks, the repair will only be superficial. Eventually, the vulnerability reappears, and the object may shatter again under pressure. When you try to fix things too quickly in a relationship, you're not allowing for genuine healing or reflection. This hurried approach can come across as desperate, as if you're so afraid of losing her that you're willing to sacrifice your own needs in the process. It's a move that often signals insecurity rather than strength. Let me share a story that ties these points together. There was a man named Ryan who found himself in a situation where his partner began to pull away. At first, Ryan's reaction was instinctive. He started texting her non-stop, apologizing for small things that, in his mind, might have hurt her, and constantly trying to fix every little issue before it escalated. Initially, it seemed like his efforts were working. She would reply, albeit less frequently as time went on. However, soon she began to feel overwhelmed by his relentless attempts to fill every moment with conversation and resolution. Instead of feeling valued, she started to feel smothered and lost the space she needed to reflect on her own feelings. Ryan's frantic efforts not only failed to bring her back closer, but they also deepened the emotional distance between them. His actions were driven by a fear of abandonment, a fear that led him to over-text, over-apologize, and rush to fix problems before they had a chance to naturally resolve. What Ryan needed, and what you might need in similar situations, is to recognize that sometimes the best approach is to pause, to allow silence to create a space where genuine reflection can occur. This silence is not about playing games. It's about giving both yourself and her the breathing room needed to process emotions and to appreciate the value of what you bring to the table. It's about trusting that your worth is inherent and that constantly seeking validation through frantic messages or ceaseless apologies only undermines your true potential. When you step back, you invite a different kind of communication, a conversation that isn't driven by anxiety, but by mutual respect and self-assurance. It's important to understand that these behaviors, over-texting, over-apologizing, and trying to fix things too quickly, are interconnected. They all stem from a place of fear, the fear of being alone, the fear of losing someone, and the fear of not being good enough. When you act out of fear, you lose the opportunity to act out of confidence. And when confidence is absent, the dynamic shifts and attraction begins to wane. The key is to replace panic with patience. Instead of inundating her with messages, allow moments of silence that speak louder than words. Instead of saying sorry for every little thing, build a foundation of self-respect that shows you value yourself enough not to apologize unnecessarily. And instead of rushing to fix every issue, take the time to understand the problem and address it with thoughtful care. This approach might seem counterintuitive at first, especially when the instinct is to act immediately. But trust me when I say that real change begins when you slow down. It's in the quiet moments, when you give space to your thoughts and emotions, that you truly connect with the essence of who you are. And when you're in tune with your own value, you naturally become more attractive to those around you. So if you're making these mistakes, if you find yourself constantly texting, endlessly apologizing, or trying to fix everything right away, pause for a moment. Reflect on what these actions are saying about you. They're saying that you're desperate for attention, that you're insecure about your worth, and that you're too eager to hold on at any cost. Instead, embrace the power of silence. Let the quiet speak for you. Let your actions reflect the calm, confident person you truly are. By making this shift, you'll begin to notice a transformation in the way she responds. The space you create will not only give her the room to miss you, but it will also allow you to rebuild your own sense of self. And in that rebuilding, you'll find that true attraction isn't forced, it blossoms naturally. So, if you're making these mistakes, what's the right move? Let's talk about the power of silence. Have you ever noticed that sometimes the quiet moments speak louder than 1,000 words? There's a hidden strength in stepping back and allowing silence to take its natural course. Instead of constantly filling the space with calls or messages, consider what happens when you intentionally hold back, when you let that gap exist. It's not about playing games. It's about embracing a natural rhythm that allows both you and the other person to reconnect in a more genuine way. Imagine for a moment that you're at a small, intimate gathering. Conversations are flowing, but there's a certain magic in the pauses, the moments when people stop talking and just take in the atmosphere. Those silent beats give each person a chance to think, to feel, and to truly appreciate the conversation once it resumes. In relationships, these pauses can work in a similar way. When you withdraw for a bit, you're giving her the space to miss you, to reflect on what you once shared, and to realize the value of your presence. There was a time when I witnessed a similar transformation. A man, let's call him Sam, found himself in a situation where his partner's interest seemed to be waning. Rather than chasing after her with a barrage of texts and calls, Sam decided to take a step back. For several days, he deliberately chose silence. At first, the quiet was unnerving. He wondered if his absence would be interpreted as indifference, but he trusted that this pause was a chance for both of them to reassess what truly mattered. Slowly, something unexpected happened. His partner began to reach out, her messages tinged with curiosity and longing, as if she was finally realizing how much she had taken his presence for granted. This isn't about creating distance to hurt or punish. It's about allowing the natural order of things to unfold. When you pull away, you're not rejecting her. You're inviting her to see that you are complete on your own, that your happiness does not depend solely on her attention. It's a powerful reminder that your worth is inherent and not subject to constant validation. In that quiet space, both of you have the opportunity to breathe, reflect, and eventually reconnect with a renewed sense of appreciation. Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Those words resonate deeply when you think about the anxiety that comes with silence. Often, our minds fill that void with worst-case scenarios, imagining that a pause means rejection. But in reality, this quiet period is a chance to reset, to allow emotions to settle and to bring clarity. When you resist the urge to fill every moment with noise, you're choosing to honor both your own space and hers. Think about how you feel after a good night's sleep. The world feels refreshed, thoughts become clearer, and you approach challenges with renewed vigor. That's exactly what happens when you allow silence to work its magic in your interactions. It's not about neglecting her, but rather about giving both of you a moment to realign with what truly matters. In that silence, you find the strength to let go of constant worry and the freedom to be authentically you. There's also an element of mystery that comes into play when you embrace quiet. Constant communication can sometimes erode the allure of your presence. When you're always available, your value can inadvertently seem diminished. But when you step back, you create a subtle tension, a space that leaves her wondering and ultimately longing for your attention. This isn't a trick or a manipulative tactic. It's a natural outcome of demonstrating that you are self-assured and content within yourself. When your actions reflect calm and confidence, the space you create becomes a powerful signal of your inner strength. Consider the analogy of a beautiful piece of art displayed in a quiet room. The silence of the space enhances the art, allowing every detail to shine without distraction. In the same way, by choosing to be silent at the right moment, you allow your true self, the confident, composed, and intriguing person you are, to stand out. Your absence speaks volumes, and the gap you create becomes a canvas upon which your inherent qualities are painted. I've seen many times how the art of silence can change the dynamic in a relationship. When you stop trying to fill every moment with conversation, you give both yourself and her the gift of space. This space allows her to reflect on the moments you shared and to realize what it is about you that she values so deeply. Rather than being smothered by constant attention, she begins to miss the unique energy you bring into her life. It's a natural process, a gentle awakening that often leads to a renewed connection built on mutual respect and genuine interest. Of course, this isn't about abandoning communication altogether. There is a delicate balance here, a dance between speaking and being silent. The key is to let silence do its work without letting it turn into coldness or indifference. It's about knowing when to speak up and when to let the quiet affirm your presence. In those moments of quiet, you're not distancing yourself. You're giving both of you the opportunity to experience a pause that ultimately deepens your connection. It's important to remember that the goal isn't to create an atmosphere of tension or uncertainty. Rather, it's to allow both of you to rediscover the value of thoughtful communication. When you return from that period of silence, your words carry more weight, your presence feels more intentional, and the interaction is enriched by the space that allowed genuine reflection. This thoughtful approach is what transforms routine exchanges into meaningful conversations. Conversations that have the power to rebuild and even strengthen the bond between you. When you let silence play its role, you are showing that you have control over your emotions. You are telling her that your self-worth is not contingent on every response you receive, and that you are confident enough to trust that space will speak for itself. This form of self-assurance is incredibly attractive. It demonstrates that you are not desperate for validation, that you can stand alone, and that you understand the importance of balance in any relationship. In those quiet moments, you may also find that your own perspective shifts. The anxiety that once plagued you begins to fade, replaced by a calm certainty that comes from knowing you are enough. You begin to see that silence is not empty. It's full of possibilities, reflections, and the promise of reconnection. And as you embrace this quiet strength, you invite her to do the same. There is a timeless wisdom in allowing silence to be your guide, a wisdom that has been celebrated by great thinkers and philosophers throughout history. When you choose to be silent at the right times, you honor the natural flow of life, the ebb and flow of relationships, and the inherent value of every pause. It is in these moments that you truly learn to appreciate the power of being comfortable in your own company and to let that comfort radiate outwards. So, as you consider the art of silence, take a moment to appreciate its subtle yet undeniable power. Understand that by choosing to step back when necessary, you are not showing disinterest. You are showing deliberate self-respect. You are giving yourself and her the space to breathe, to reflect, and to eventually come together with a deeper, more authentic connection. Now, while silence is undeniably powerful, it's just one part of a larger strategy for creating lasting attraction. In the next part, we'll explore a comprehensive framework, a 5-step approach that builds on this foundation of quiet confidence to truly make her chase you. Let's break down the Stoic principles that will guide you through this transformation. All right. Now let's get tactical. Here's the 5-step framework based on ancient wisdom that will make her chase you naturally and powerfully. Imagine this as a guide to help you transform your approach and let your true self shine through. It all begins with understanding that your inner strength is your most attractive asset. And when you harness that power, you become irresistible. Picture this. The first step is all about emotional detachment. Now, I know that sounds counterintuitive. Detachment might seem like indifference, but let me explain. When you detach emotionally, you're not shutting down your feelings. Instead, you're choosing not to let them control you. This is about recognizing that your happiness is yours to cultivate, regardless of anyone else's actions. Think of it like this. If you were a strong, sturdy tree, your roots would run deep, holding you steady even in the fiercest wind. When you practice emotional detachment, you show that inner strength, a calm assurance that your worth doesn't depend on constant validation. It sends a clear message. Your happiness comes from within, and that is incredibly magnetic. Moving on, let's talk about the next step, leveling up. This isn't about superficial changes, it's about genuine self-improvement. Imagine dedicating yourself to growing every day, improving your skills, advancing your passions, and taking care of your physical and mental well-being. When you invest in yourself, you're not only building confidence, but you're also creating a version of yourself that is continuously evolving. Picture the satisfaction you get from learning something new or mastering a difficult task. This progress becomes a part of who you are. When you level up, you naturally become more interesting and engaging. It's like adding vibrant colors to your personal canvas. People can't help but be drawn to someone who is constantly growing and refining their life. Now, let's ease into the third technique. Controlled indifference. This might sound like you're saying, "I don't care," but really it's about maintaining a balanced perspective. Controlled indifference is about choosing when to react and when to hold back. It's a subtle art of not letting every little thing shake you. Imagine facing a situation where someone's not giving you the attention you crave. Instead of spiraling into worry, you take a breath and remain composed. This calm, unhurried reaction tells her that you are secure enough to not be affected by every moment of uncertainty. In doing so, you preserve your dignity and make her wonder why she's not the center of your universe. That quiet strength is what makes your presence so compelling. Then there's the fourth step, space and absence. Think of it like the silent pause in a beautiful melody, a moment that heightens anticipation and makes the next note even more powerful. When you give space, you're not abandoning the connection. You're creating an environment where both of you can reflect and appreciate what you share. Allowing space is about recognizing that constant presence isn't always beneficial. It can dilute the magic. Instead, when you allow a little absence, you spark curiosity and longing. It's like when you leave a room and someone already notices your absence. That gap creates a tension that only genuine attraction can fill. This isn't about playing hard to get. It's about trusting that the quality of your connection will speak for itself when the time is right. Finally, we arrive at the fifth and perhaps the most exciting step, the high-value comeback. After giving space, it's time to re-enter the scene, not with desperation, but with a refined sense of purpose and confidence. Picture this. You return, not as someone who's been waiting around, but as someone who's grown, learned, and embraced life fully. Your comeback is not about proving a point. It's about showing that you are complete, that you have a rich life beyond the ups and downs of this relationship. When you make that return, you do it on your own terms, with the assurance that you're worth the wait. This step is the culmination of everything you've built: emotional detachment, self-improvement, controlled indifference, and the art of giving space. Your high-value comeback is a celebration of your journey, a powerful reminder that you're not defined by the absence of someone else's attention, but by the abundance of your own inner strength. Let's pause here for a moment. Imagine these 5 steps as the building blocks of a more confident, self-assured version of yourself. When you integrate emotional detachment, you start to recognize that your worth is independent of external validation. By leveling up, you invest in your personal growth and become a more intriguing person. With controlled indifference, you learn to manage your reactions, preserving your composure even in challenging moments. Giving space creates an environment where natural attraction can flourish, and a high-value comeback seals the transformation by allowing you to re-engage with renewed vigor and authenticity. Each of these techniques works together to create a dynamic shift in how you relate to others. It's not about manipulation or playing games. It's about building a foundation of genuine self-respect and calm assurance. When you adopt these principles, you shift the focus from trying desperately to control the situation to embracing a more balanced, thoughtful approach. The result is a natural, magnetic presence that draws people in without force. I want you to really take these ideas to heart. Picture yourself living each of these principles every day. See how your actions, your words, and your very presence transform into a quiet, undeniable confidence. That's the kind of energy that not only makes you more attractive, but also brings a deeper sense of fulfillment to your own life. Remember, the journey isn't about instantly changing overnight. It's about small, consistent steps that over time accumulate into a powerful transformation. There will be moments when it feels challenging to hold back or to trust in the process. In those times, remind yourself of the strength that comes from within. Remember that every step you take toward emotional detachment, self-improvement, controlled indifference, and embracing space is a step toward becoming the best version of yourself. And when the time comes for your high-value comeback, you'll step forward with the kind of energy that's hard to ignore. You'll have cultivated not just a set of strategies, but a mindset, a way of living that values your own worth above all else. That mindset, that unwavering self-respect, is what truly makes you irresistible. So, as you consider this framework, see it as a holistic approach to transforming your life. Each technique is a piece of the puzzle that, when put together, forms a complete picture of self-assuredness and genuine attraction. By following these principles, you're not only setting the stage for her to chase you, you're also paving the way for a richer, more balanced relationship with yourself. Now take a deep breath and imagine the possibilities that come with this newfound confidence. Feel the shift as you internalize these 5 powerful steps. This is your roadmap to transforming not just your relationships, but your entire approach to life, one that's rooted in strength, resilience, and quiet, compelling power. Now that you've seen how these 5 steps can reshape your approach, let's move on to a real-life story that brings these principles to life. A story about a man who transformed his situation by embracing these techniques. Let me tell you a story about a man named Mark, someone who once felt lost in the chaos of uncertainty and emotional overdrive, only to find clarity through timeless wisdom. Mark's journey began on a day much like any other. He had been in a relationship that once brought him joy and comfort, but over time he noticed that things started to change. His partner, who had once been warm and responsive, began to withdraw. At first, he couldn't understand why. He thought that by reaching out more, by apologizing for every small mistake, he might mend the gap that was forming between them. So, every time a text went unanswered or a call wasn't returned promptly, Mark would send another message, hoping desperately to fill the silence. For weeks, he found himself caught in a cycle of over-texting and over-apologizing. His phone was never silent, and neither was his mind. He believed that if he just kept trying, if he just kept showing up, everything would return to the way it was. But instead of drawing her back, his constant pursuit pushed her even further away. It was as if the more he chased, the more he lost the very mystery that once made him intriguing. One evening, feeling utterly exhausted by his own frantic efforts, Mark came across a piece of advice that would change his entire perspective. He read, "Seneca said, if you want to be loved, love." That simple sentence resonated deeply with him. It wasn't about grand gestures or endless messages. It was about embracing a calm inner strength and trusting that love, when genuine, would find its way. Mark realized that he had been looking for validation in all the wrong places. Instead of being the calm, self-assured person he longed to be, he had become someone defined by anxiety and constant neediness. Determined to make a change, Mark decided to try a different approach. He started by practicing emotional detachment, not by shutting off his feelings, but by choosing not to let his emotions control every action. This wasn't an easy step. There were moments when he felt the urge to pick up his phone immediately after a period of silence, but he reminded himself that his worth was not dependent on her response. Slowly, he began to pull back, allowing for space where his constant messages used to be. Next, Mark focused on leveling up. He enrolled in a few courses he had always been interested in, began exercising regularly, and even started spending more time with friends. Every day, he dedicated himself to self-improvement, realizing that a stronger version of himself was far more appealing than someone who was always waiting on the sidelines. As he invested in his own growth, Mark noticed a subtle but significant change in his outlook. The constant need for her validation began to fade, replaced by a quiet confidence that emerged from within. As the days passed, Mark also learned the art of controlled indifference. There were times when his inner voice urged him to react instantly to every message or comment, but he began to practice patience instead. He started to let some messages go unanswered for a while, allowing himself to remain composed in the face of uncertainty. This wasn't about ignoring her altogether. It was about choosing when to respond and when to let silence speak. In these moments, he discovered that his calmness was a signal of inner strength, a message that said, "I am complete on my own." Mark then embraced the idea of space and absence. He understood that constant communication could sometimes dilute the value of his presence. By giving a little space, he allowed both himself and her the chance to reflect. During this period, he reduced his messaging significantly, and instead of filling every moment with words, he allowed silence to create a natural gap, a gap that made his eventual return more impactful. It wasn't long before he noticed a change. She began to ask about his well-being and even mentioned that she missed the quiet moments they once shared. This space did not drive them apart. Rather, it ignited a curiosity and longing that had been buried under constant attention. Finally, Mark prepared for his high-value comeback. After a period of reflection and growth, he re-entered the conversation with a newfound sense of purpose. His messages were thoughtful and measured, carrying the weight of someone who had taken the time to invest in himself. He no longer reached out with a frantic urgency, but with calm assurance. When he spoke, his words were imbued with the quiet confidence of someone who knew his own worth. His return wasn't about proving anything to her. It was about showing that he had grown and that his life was rich with his own passions and interests. It wasn't long before the transformation became evident. Her responses grew warmer and more engaged. She began to share more about her day and even initiated conversations on her own. The dynamic had shifted from one of constant chasing to a balanced dialogue filled with mutual respect and curiosity. Mark's story spread among his friends as a quiet reminder that sometimes the best way to win someone back is not through desperate pursuit, but by focusing on self-improvement and embracing the power of silence. Looking back, Mark realized that his earlier mistakes, over-texting, over-apologizing, and trying too hard to fix every little thing, had only served to erode the natural rhythm of his connection with her. By letting go of those behaviors, he had created space for genuine attraction to flourish. His journey was not about playing games or manipulating emotions. It was about a sincere transformation that began with accepting his own value. This transformation was gradual, filled with moments of self-doubt and small victories alike. There were days when the urge to revert to old habits was almost overwhelming. But each time, Mark reminded himself that every moment of self-improvement, every pause to reflect, was a step toward a more fulfilling life. The power of silence, the art of controlled indifference, and the commitment to his own growth reshaped not only his relationship, but his entire perspective on life. Today, when Mark reflects on his journey, he sees it as a profound lesson in self-mastery. He learned that true strength comes from within, that the ability to remain calm and composed in the face of uncertainty is far more attractive than any desperate plea for attention. His story is a testament to the fact that by embracing these principles, anyone can transform not just their relationships, but the way they see themselves. For anyone who finds themselves stuck in a cycle of constant chasing and overwhelming anxiety, take a moment to breathe and remember that your value is inherent. Trust in the process of self-improvement and let the quiet moments work their magic. Mark's journey shows that it's possible to reclaim your self-respect and to create a dynamic where genuine attraction thrives naturally. In the end, the transformation wasn't just about getting her to chase him back. It was about Mark rediscovering his own worth. He realized that when you invest in yourself, you become a beacon of calm strength that draws others in without force. And that, ultimately, is the most powerful lesson of all. Imagine waking up one morning and realizing that despite all your efforts, she simply isn't coming back. That moment can feel like a heavy weight on your chest, an unmistakable sting of rejection. But what if this very experience is not a failure, but a turning point? Instead of clinging to what once was, consider it an invitation to rediscover who you truly are. When faced with the reality that someone you cared about has chosen not to return, it's natural to feel hurt and question your own worth. Yet the wisdom of ancient philosophy teaches us that rejection isn't something to be feared. It's a chance to learn, to grow, and to redirect your energy towards something greater. True strength lies in accepting the situation with calm assurance and in understanding that your value isn't defined by the presence or absence of another person. It's about realizing that your self-worth comes from within, not from the validation of someone else. There's an old saying that resonates with this idea, a reminder from one of the great minds of our past. Marcus Aurelius said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This means that every obstacle, every setback, is not merely a barrier but an opportunity, a chance to evolve and to turn adversity into advantage. When you encounter rejection, instead of letting it diminish you, use it as a catalyst for personal transformation. The first step in moving forward is to acknowledge your feelings without letting them control you. It's perfectly okay to feel disappointed or even a little lost. Allow yourself that moment of vulnerability, but then remind yourself that every experience, even the painful ones, carries a lesson. Understand that if she never comes back, it isn't because you are lacking. It's because the connection was never truly meant to last. Accepting this truth is liberating. It frees you from the cycle of chasing and clinging, and it opens up the space for you to focus on what really matters, your own growth and well-being. Imagine redirecting the energy you once spent trying to win someone back into something that truly enriches your life. Consider investing in your passions, whether that means honing a craft, pursuing a new hobby, or deepening your understanding of the world around you. There's a profound satisfaction in knowing that you are building a life that is full and vibrant, regardless of someone else's involvement. Instead of fixating on the loss, embrace the opportunity to create new experiences that celebrate your individuality. It might help to take some time for self-reflection. Find a quiet moment for yourself, whether that's during a morning walk, over a cup of coffee, or simply in the calm of your own thoughts. Reflect on what truly makes you happy, what your dreams are, and how you can pursue them with renewed energy. This process is not about denying your pain, but about channeling it into something constructive. By turning inward and reconnecting with your own aspirations, you begin to see that the end of one chapter is simply the beginning of another. Practical steps can also make a big difference. Consider setting small, achievable goals that align with your personal interests. Maybe it's learning a new language, starting a fitness routine, or dedicating time to a creative project. Each step you take toward bettering yourself reinforces the truth that your happiness is your own responsibility. Remember, self-respect is built on the foundation of self-care and self-improvement. Every time you choose to invest in yourself, you send a powerful message to the world that you are enough just as you are. It's also important to remember that moving forward doesn't mean you have to rush into something new immediately. Healing is a process, one that requires patience and gentle persistence. Give yourself permission to grieve the loss of what you hoped might be, but then allow that grief to pave the way for growth. Surround yourself with people who lift you up, friends, family, or even mentors who remind you of your worth and encourage you to embrace new possibilities. Their support can serve as a steady reminder that life is full of connections waiting to be formed, and that your journey is far from over. In moments of solitude, you may find your mind wandering to what might have been. It's natural to replay memories and to wonder if things could have been different. But true wisdom comes from understanding that every ending is also a beginning. With each passing day, you have the opportunity to rebuild, to redefine your path, and to discover new sources of joy. The emptiness you feel now can slowly transform into a space filled with promise, a blank canvas on which you can paint a future that reflects the real you. Rejection, as painful as it is, can be the most honest feedback of all. It tells you that something in that particular connection wasn't aligned with your true self, and that's a valuable lesson. By embracing this reality, you free yourself from the need to force a connection that wasn't meant to be. Instead, you open the door to relationships that are rooted in mutual respect, understanding, and genuine affection. Trust that the right people will appreciate the unique qualities that you bring to the table. If you find yourself struggling with feelings of inadequacy or doubt, remind yourself that rejection is not a measure of your worth. It's merely a part of life, a challenge that, once overcome, adds depth to your character. There's a certain beauty in knowing that you have the strength to move on, to learn, and to grow from every experience. As you continue on this journey, let your resilience shine through. Let the pain of rejection be transformed into the fuel for your next great adventure. Take a moment to appreciate that every experience, even the ones that hurt, brings you closer to understanding who you are. Know that you have the power to shape your own destiny, one that is filled with opportunities, self-discovery, and ultimately, happiness. Embrace the idea that if she never comes back, it's not the end of your story. It's simply a new beginning. So, stand tall and move forward with the confidence that comes from knowing your own worth. Every step you take on this path is a testament to your resilience. Believe in your ability to overcome, to transform, and to create a life that is rich with fulfillment. Your journey is uniquely yours, and every experience, whether joyful or challenging, contributes to the masterpiece that is your life. Remember, rejection is not a sign of failure. It's a stepping stone toward greater things. As you let go of what was, embrace what can be, and trust that the future holds the promise of new beginnings, you'll find that true strength lies not in clinging to the past, but in boldly stepping into a new chapter. Let this be your moment of transformation, an opportunity to celebrate your inner strength, your ability to adapt, and the unwavering belief that your best days are still ahead. As we wrap up this conversation, take a moment to reflect on everything we've shared. Throughout our discussion, we explored the idea that true strength in relationships comes from within, a calm, steady presence that doesn't need constant validation. You learned that genuine attraction isn't about chasing or overcompensating. It's about embracing your own worth and nurturing the quiet power of self-respect. Think back on the insights we discussed today, the importance of stepping back, allowing silence to work its magic, and building a life that is rich in passion, purpose, and personal growth. Every time you choose to invest in yourself rather than seek approval from someone else, you're reinforcing the truth that your value is inherent. When you hold on to that understanding, you create a space where genuine connection can flourish naturally, free from desperation and constant neediness. Remember the wisdom of ancient thinkers who remind us that self-mastery begins with recognizing our own worth. By choosing to cultivate inner strength and maintain a balanced approach to communication, you not only enhance your personal journey, but also become a magnet for those who appreciate authenticity and calm confidence. It's a journey that transforms your interactions into meaningful, mutual exchanges, ones where respect and curiosity lead the way. Now, before we close, I'd like to ask you, have you ever experienced moments when stepping back and allowing silence to take over transformed your connection with someone? I'd love to hear your story in the comments. Each experience is a valuable lesson that can inspire others on their own paths to self-improvement. And if you found these insights helpful, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. Your support means the world. It not only helps spread these timeless lessons, but also fuels the journey of self-discovery and growth for so many others. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Remember, every step you take towards embracing your inner strength is a step towards a more fulfilling life. Let your journey of self-respect and quiet power guide you forward, and trust that your best days are yet to come. Keep believing in yourself, and never forget that true transformation starts from within. Until next time, stay strong and keep shining.